If most of what you watch, buy, and believe online comes from "for you," "up next," and "recommended," then a simple question gets uncomfortable fast. Are you choosing, or are you being chosen for? Google has said that a majority of watch time on YouTube comes from recommendations, and Netflix has publicly shared that most viewing comes from recommendations too. That means the default experience online isn't search and decide. It's get served and react. And to be clear, AI sometimes nudges us. It doesn't control us, but nudges add up. Tristan Harris, a former Google design ethicist, warned that the goal of many systems is not your well-being, it's your attention. Not because someone hates you, but because attention is what these platforms are built to measure and monetize. Subscribe to Mind for AI and click the bell icon and watch till the end to stay ahead of the systems shaping your decisions. Because once you see the pattern, you can break it. You're scrolling at night, half-tired, telling yourself you'll stop after one more. Your thumb keeps moving like it has its own brain, and the videos get slightly more emotional, slightly more intense, slightly more you. You didn't ask for that shift. It just happened. Then you look up and think, why am I still here? Here's another one. You open your feed to relax, and suddenly you're annoyed at a stranger you've never met. Your chest feels tight, your jaw is clenched, and you're typing a reply you wouldn't say out loud. 2 minutes ago, you were fine. Now you're in a fight. Or this. You're shopping for something boring, like socks or a phone case, and the site shows you people also bought. You didn't plan to spend more, but your brain starts building a story. If I add this one thing, it's a smarter purchase. Then you check out. Later you wonder why you were so sure in the moment. One more. You search a health question, totally normal. And the next day your feed is full of miracle cures, fear-based clips, and doctors hate this energy. You didn't join a movement. You just asked a question. But the system read that question as a signal. Did you feel it? That tiny pull? Before AI-driven feeds, information was slower and flatter. You had a newspaper with the same front page as everyone else. TV had a schedule, and when a show ended, it actually ended. If you wanted something, you went looking for it. The default was friction. Now the default is flow. Infinite scroll, autoplay, personalization that updates every time you pause your thumb for half a second. We didn't just upgrade content. We upgraded the delivery system that shapes mood, beliefs, and impulses in real time. And it's not magic. It's pattern prediction. Algorithms can nudge decisions by predicting patterns based on your past behavior. What you watch, what you skip, what you replay, what you zoom in on, what you linger on, what you rage comment on. Even if you never type a word, your attention is still feedback. Think of it like this. You're not just consuming the feed, you're training it, and then it trains you back. A real-world example that still shocks people. Researchers published a large-scale study in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences showing that changing what people saw in their Facebook feed could shift the emotional tone of what they posted. Not mind control, not hypnosis, something more subtle and more realistic. Emotional contagion, scaled by a system that decides what you see first. Your mood is more contagious than you think, and the feed is a carrier. Here's a micro scenario you've lived. You watch one video about productivity. The next recommendations are slightly more intense. Hustle harder. Sleep is for the weak. Then a clip shaming people for being average. At first it feels motivating. Then it feels heavy. And the weird part is, you didn't choose a new philosophy. You chose a single video. Another one. You watch one clip criticizing a public figure. The next clips are harsher, more confident, more absolute. Your brain loves certainty when it's tired, so it feels good. Then suddenly your feed sounds like it has one opinion, one enemy, one solution. Not because everyone agrees, but because certainty drives engagement, and engagement trains the model. This is the emotional pain people don't name. You're not only losing time, you're losing authorship. You start feeling like your attention has a steering wheel, and someone else has their hands on it. And the most frustrating part is how innocent it feels in the moment. It's just one click, one scroll, one video, one thread. So what's actually happening underneath the screen? What's happening is ranking. The platform has way more content than you could ever see, so it has to choose an order. The order is the product. AI models estimate what you're most likely to do next, based on patterns from you and people like you. And then they serve the options that maximize a goal, usually watch time, shares, or likelihood to return. Why it works is psychology. Your brain doesn't treat all information equally. It prioritizes novelty, threat, social approval, and anything that feels like it might matter for status or belonging. Those are ancient wiring priorities, and modern feeds can press those buttons constantly. How it gets you is timing. The system doesn't need to change your personality. It just needs to catch you in predictable moments, when you're bored, lonely, stressed, procrastinating, or tired, because that's when your autopilot is strongest. If this feels personal, it isn't. It's statistical. Here's the cliffhanger. The moment you learn the few predictable lapses AI waits for, you can build tiny pattern interrupts that make the system far less powerful. Not by quitting the internet, not by becoming a monk, but by changing a handful of defaults. And yes, you can feel the difference fast. Drop a like if you've ever looked up and realized the feed pulled you somewhere you didn't mean to go. Now let's get practical, without going paranoid. One of the most useful ways to talk about this comes from computer science and behavioral science together. AI isn't reading your mind, it's reducing you to probabilities. If you behave the same way in the same context, you become easy to predict. Predictability is profitable, and neuroscience explains why predictability spikes at certain times. When you're fatigued or stressed, your prefrontal cortex, the part associated with planning and self-control, tends to do less active top-down regulation. Meanwhile, your brain leans more on habits and quick emotional heuristics. In plain language, when you're tired, you don't choose. You default. So the question becomes, when do you scroll the most automatically? Late at night, in bed, between tasks, when you feel a little uncomfortable, when you want a quick hit of relief. That's not weakness, that's biology. Here's a second neuroscience piece that matters: variable rewards. Your brain's dopamine system is deeply responsive to unpredictable rewards, the slot machine effect. You don't keep scrolling because every post is great. You keep scrolling because you might find something great, and the maybe is what hooks you. Did you just recognize yourself? Good. That's the doorway out. Now, expert insight number 2, from the AI side. Many recommendation systems are trained with feedback loops. When a model promotes content and people engage, it learns that promoting that type of content works. Over time, it can create a more of what worked yesterday spiral. This is why your feed can narrow, intensify, or polarize, even if you didn't ask it to. So what do you do with this? Without deleting every app and moving to a cabin, you use micro-actions that add friction, widen input, and break predictability. First practical move: change your default from passive to intentional by inserting a tiny choice point before you open a feed. Not a huge ritual, just a sentence you ask yourself out loud or in your head. What am I here for? If you can name a purpose, you're using the prefrontal cortex. If you can't name a purpose, you're about to be trained. Short, punchy. Name the mission. Second practical move: make autoplay and infinite flow work for you, not against you. Turn off autoplay where you can. When you finish a video, force a stop moment so your brain has a chance to reevaluate. If you can't turn it off on a platform, create a manual pause. When a video ends, take your hand off the phone until you decide the next click. That sounds almost too simple. That's why it works. Third practical move: control the inputs that train your recommendations. Most people try to fight the feed with willpower while feeding it the exact signals that keep it strong. If you want different recommendations, you need different signals. Use not interested. Use don't recommend channel. Clear or pause watch history for periods when your behavior is not you, like when you're doom scrolling sick in bed. This matters because the model can't tell the difference between "I chose this deliberately" and "I was exhausted and stuck." It just sees engagement. Ask yourself a weird question. If your future feed was built from only today's clicks, Would you be proud of it? That one question can change your next tap. Fourth practical move. Set micro limits that match how your brain actually works. Big rules fail when you're tired. Tiny rules survive. Try a simple container. Only open short-form feeds after you've done the one task you've been avoiding. Or only open them in one physical place, like standing in the kitchen, not in bed. Context is a lever. When you tie a behavior to a location, you reduce mindless repetition. AI is like a chess opponent seeing your moves 2 steps ahead. So stop making the same opening move. Fifth practical move. A 24-hour decision trace. For one day, write down a few moments when you felt pulled. What were you feeling? What did you click? What happened next? You're not tracking everything. You're tracking the moments where you felt your autonomy shrink. This does 2 things. It makes the invisible visible, and it turns a vague feeling into a map. Once you have a map, you stop blaming yourself and start changing the environment. Let's do a quick mental image. Picture your attention like a flashlight in a dark room. The algorithm doesn't control the flashlight, but it can scatter shiny objects everywhere. So your flashlight keeps snapping away from what you actually care about. So the real skill isn't be stronger. It's aim on purpose. Sixth practical move. Widen your information diet on purpose. If you only eat one flavor of content, the feed learns more of that, and your worldview can start to feel like a hallway with no doors. Subscribe to a few voices you respect who disagree with you without being cruel. Add one source that focuses on primary evidence instead of hot takes. Follow creators who calm your nervous system instead of spiking it. This is not about being neutral. It's about being unhackable. Because here's a subtle truth. The easiest mind to nudge is the mind that only sees one lane. Seventh practical move. Protect your emotional state like it's part of your intelligence. If you watch outrage, you become more outraged. If you watch fear, you become more fearful. If you watch humiliation content, you become more cynical. Not because you're gullible, but because emotions are contagious, and attention is exposure. Remember that published Facebook studies showing emotional tone could shift by changing what people saw. That's not ancient history. The basic mechanism is still here. What you repeatedly see affects what you repeatedly feel, and what you repeatedly feel affects what you repeatedly believe. So add a reset. When you notice emotional escalation, do a pattern interrupt. Put the phone down, take a slow breath, and label the state. I'm getting pulled into anger. Labeling emotions can reduce their intensity because it engages more reflective processing. Did you just feel a nudge again? That's the moment to practice. Eighth practical move. Build deliberate unpredictability. This is the part people underestimate. AI predicts you best when you behave consistently. If you always click the same kind of thumbnail when you're bored, it will keep serving it. If you always search the same topics when you're anxious, it will keep feeding that loop. Your job isn't to become random. Your job is to become deliberate. Sometimes choose the opposite of your impulse. If you want to click the most extreme take, click the calm explainer instead. If you want to watch the 5th short in a row, switch to a long-form video you intentionally picked. If you want to keep scrolling, open your Notes app and write the question you're actually trying to answer. That one move is powerful because deliberate actions are harder to predict than reflexes. And here's the most relieving truth in all of this. AI cannot easily predict your conscious choices. It can estimate what people like you do on average. But the second you choose based on values instead of cravings, you step outside the smoothest part of its model. This is the identity shift. You're not a user. You're a chooser. You can still enjoy the internet. You can still watch funny clips. You can still learn from recommendations. The goal isn't to fear AI. The goal is to stop living inside defaults you didn't choose. Reactive to conscious. Pulled to purposeful. So here's your simple challenge. For the next week, treat your feed like a mirror that reflects your clicks back at you. Train it like you would train a dog, kindly but firmly. Reward what you want more of. Remove what you don't. Add friction to your weak moments. Protect your tired brain from making permanent training data. Like, comment, share, and subscribe to Mind for AI. if you want more realistic breakdowns of how these systems work and how to stay human inside them. And tell me this in the comments. Do you think AI really influences your decisions? Or are we overestimating it?